Agila in Maynila. Hi movie review lovers friends, today I am going to describe the movie story of Agila in Maynila. Now let's talk about it, as we know that Agila in Maynila lit. Eagle of Manila is a 1988 Filipino action film directed by Pablo Santiago, written by Pablo S. Gomez, and produced by Fernando Poe Jr., who stars as Maro Reyes, the titular Eagle of Manila. The film also stars Vic Vargas, Paquito Diaz, Charlie Davo, Raul Aragon, Vic Diaz, Dencio Cadilla, Lito Anzuras, Mario Escudero, and Lucida Soriano. Produced by FBJ Productions, Agila in Maynila was released on December 25, 1988, as part of the 14th Metro Manila Film Festival, MMFF. Agila in Maynila was the highest-grossing film among the 6 entries of the festival, and R.R. Herrera won the MMFF Award for Best Child Performer. Agila in Maynila was given a P15 rating by the Movie and Television Review and Classification Board, MTRCV, and was released on December 25, 1988. As one of the official entries for the 14th Metro Manila Film Festival, MMFF. On its opening day, Agila in Maynila grossed 2.570 million Cuban pesos, ahead of other MMFF films. By January, the film would retain its standing as the highest-grossing film among the 6 entries of the 14th MMFF. Poe's enduring popularity among the Filipino people is cited as the main reason for the film's success. Lav Diaz, writing for the Manila Standard, grouped Agila in Maynila with Celestina Sanchez, alias Bubbles, Enforcer, Adavan Gang, and Patrolman as films which directly place the dark face of the police establishment on public trial. Though Diaz did not give an assessment of the film's quality, he described it as possessing a positive outlook, with the main character having the perspective that society needs only a hero to fix its problems and the police. Agila in Maynila was released on DVD by Viva Video in 2006. The next year, Viva Video would pair the film for its De King Collector's Edition DVD with Ananino Ni Asadillo, a film starring Poe's half-brother Conrad Poe and featuring an appearance by Poe himself. Lavrod Indigo Diaz, born December 30, 1958, is a Filipino independent filmmaker and former film critic. 3. He is known as one of the key practitioners of the slow cinema genre, producing a diverse range of longest narrative films that explore social and political issues, minimalistic storytelling, long takes, and cinematic form. Diaz started making films in the late 1990s. His first international exposure was at the Hong Kong International Film Festival in 1999 with his directorial debut Serafin Geronimo, Ang Criminal ng Barrio Concepcion, The Criminal of Barrio Concepcion. His first notable works are Bad on West Side and Evolution of a Filipino Family, both of which feature the expanded time span that has become part of his cinematic trademark. His work caught the media attention with the European Film Festival Run of Norte, The End of History, 2013, which was entered into the Uncertain Regard section of the 2013 Cannes Film Festival and received much critical acclaim. Diaz is among one of the most critically acclaimed contemporary Filipino filmmakers, with his subsequent films have likewise received positive critical attention and many awards. From what is before won the Golden Leopard at the 2014 Locarno International Film Festival, A Lullaby to the Sorrowful Mystery won the Alfred Bauer Prize, Silver Bear, at the 66th Berlin International Film Festival, and The Woman Who Left won the Golden Lion at the 73rd Venice International Film Festival. He is a recipient of 2018's FAMA's Lifetime Achievement Award and 2021's Nidataming Gawad Urian Lifetime Achievement Award. Diaz was born in Colombia, Cotabato. His childhood was marked by the violent conflicts between Muslim armed groups and the Philippine government. Due to the dangerous situation, his family moved to the more peaceful town of Tacurong, where he finished his high school education. Diaz graduated in 1980 with an economics degree from Notre Dame University in Cotabato City. Diaz went to Manila, where began doing odd jobs for various publications and took up writing about music and film for a living. Then, he became a production assistant for Balintita. For a time, He wrote comics as part of the editorial staff for Ang Masa and Reform. 1. Diaz worked as a critic for the Manila Standard newspaper in the late 1980s before moving to New York City to study filmmaking. His Filipino-language short story, Pula, Puti at Saka Blue at Marami Pang Color lit. Red, white, and also blue and many other colors, which he wrote under the pseudonym Bahagaring Timog lit. Southern Rainbow, won second place at the 1990 Palenque Awards under the category of short story, Filipino. He has won several international awards, such as the award for Best Picture at the Singapore International Film Festival, the Independent Film Festival of Brussels and Gawad Urian in 2002 and Netpak Jury Prize and Best Acting Ensemble, 2001 Cinemanila International Film Festival, for his film Batting West Side, including Best Director, Best Screenplay, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Cinematography, Best Production Design, Best Music, Best Sound at the Urian, in Gawad Urian in 2005-4. The film Evolution ng Isang Pamilayang Pilipino, Evolution of a Filipino Family, and Special Jury Prize at the Freeport International Film Festival in 2006 for Jeremias, Book 1. His films often tackle the issues regarding the current social and political state of the Philippines. His film Kagadanan sa Banwan ng Nga Encanto, Death in the Land of Encantos, the closing film of the Horizonte section of the Venice Film Festival 2007, was awarded with a Golden Lion Special Mention. Death in the Land of Encantos was also in competition at the Artistic Innovation Award, Visions, of the Toronto International Film Festival 2007. He was 3 Palenque Memorial Awards for Literature recognitions, a second place, 1990, and an honorable mention, 1991, for short stories, and third place, 1997, for screenplay. 5. His film Melancholia won the Horizonte Grand Prize at the 65th Venice International Film Festival in 2008. In January 2011, he joined the board of directors for Cine Foundation International. 6. He went back in 2011 at the Venice International Film Festival for his film Siglo ng Kagliliwal, Century of Birthing. 7. And which earned the Grand Jury Prize at the 13th Cinemanila International Film Festival. The following year, his film Florentina Hubaldo, CTE won Best Asian Film at the Jeonju International Film Festival, 8, and gained the on-screen award at the Images Festival, 9. His 2013 film Norte, The End of History was screened in the Uncertain Regard section of the 66th Cannes Film Festival, 10. He received the Golden Leopard at the 2014 Locarno International Film Festival for From What Is Before. At the 2016 Berlin International Film Festival, his film A Lullaby to the Sorrowful Mystery was awarded the Silver Bear Alfred Bauer Prize. In the same year, he also received the Golden Lion at the 73rd Venice International Film Festival for The Woman Who Left. Diaz has made crime stories, ghost stories, and musical. On the topic of genre, Diaz has said, "It's nice to dwell on genres because there are formulas there and you can work with them. But, at the same time you're free to break them." He is a recipient of the Guggenheim Fellowship in 2010, the Prince Claus Award of the Netherlands in 2014, and the Radcliffe Fellowship of Harvard University, 2016 to 2017. Diaz was invited by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences to join as a member in July 2017. Diaz presented his film, Essential Truths of the Lake, a sequel to When the Waves Are Gone, at the 2023 Locarno Film Festival. Out of competition. 13. Diaz's film, Phantasmia, premiered as an out-of-competition entry in the 81st Venice International Film Festival, his 8th film for the festival. 14. He mostly recently premiered his film Magellan starring Gael Garcia Bernal at 2025 Cannes Film Festival. Out of competition. The film was selected as the Philippine submission for the 98th Academy Awards in the Best International Feature Film category. 15. Uniquely, he made his acting debut in an upcoming psychological horror film The Sacrifice along with Cass Lovey Poe, Timothy Granaderos and Inchong D. In December 2023, alongside 50 other filmmakers, Diaz signed an open letter published in Liberation demanding a ceasefire and an end to the killing of civilians amid the 2023 Israeli invasion of the Gaza Strip, and for a humanitarian corridor into Gaza to be established for humanitarian aid and the release of hostages. The Maynila Standard is a broadsheet newspaper in the Philippines which, as of 2017, is owned by the Romualdez family. The Romualdezes, through incumbent Representative Martin Romualdez, also own Journal Publications Incorporated, the owner of tabloid papers People's Journal and People's Tonight. Initially established as the Maynila Standard in 1987, it merged with another newspaper, Today, on March 6, 2005, and became the Maynila Standard Today, MST. In 2015, the newspaper renamed itself as The Standard, temporarily The New Standard, before reverting to its original name in 2016. The logo used from 2005 to 2015 as Maynila Standard Today. The Maynila Standard was founded on February 11, 1987. 1. The offices were then located at the bustling Agila Avenue in the Makati CBD. 2. In 1989, the group of Andres Soriano III bought out the Elizalde Group and renamed the company Cachitingan Publications and relocated the offices in the port area, Manila. Citation needed. In June 1991, the group of businessman Alfonso Yuchenko bought into the company and spun off the publishing company. It was incorporated as Kamahalan Publishing Corporation. Cachitingan Publications was renamed Cachitingan Printing Press Incorporated, which continues to print the new standard. In 1997, businessman Enrique K. Razon Jr., chairman and president of the International Container Terminal Services Incorporated, acquired the shares of the Yuchenkos and bought out the Soriano Group to become the sole owner of Kamahalan Publishing Corporation and Cachitingan Printing Press Inc. Victor Agustin took over as chairman of the editorial board in 2008. Under his term, the company formally adopted an advocacy for the environment. In 2010, just as the Aquino administration took the reins of power, ownership of the Maynila Standard Today changed hands again. This time, the Razon Group sold its interest to the Romualdez Group as Razon established Bloomberry Resorts and Hotels Corporation, owner of the Solaire Resort and Casino. The newspaper once again was relaunched as The Standard, featuring a tallboy broadsheet format. The format is bigger than tabloids and smaller than newspapers, with pictures as the main inset of the front page. The new format was first implemented in the weekend issues before the full makeover happened in the weekday issues, since February 23, 2015. The Standard was named as the Newspaper of the Year during the 2015 Rotary Club of Manila Journalism Awards for its scoops on hot-button issues, like the Mamasapano incident and the Bangsamoro Basic Law Payola issues. 4. On July 25, 2016, the paper reverted to its broadsheet format, and it was renamed as the Maynila Standard, the newspaper's original brand name in time for President Rodrigo Duterte's first State of the Nation address. The film industry or motion picture industry comprises the technological and commercial institutions of filmmaking, i.e., film production companies, film studios, cinematography, animation, film production, screenwriting, pre-production, post-production, film festivals, distribution, and actors. Though the expense involved in making film almost immediately led film production to concentrate under the auspices of standing production companies, advances in affordable filmmaking equipment, as well as an expansion of opportunities to acquire investment capital from outside the film industry itself, have allowed independent film production to evolve. In 2019, the global box office was worth $42.20 billion, when including box office and home entertainment revenue. The global film industry was worth $136 billion in 2018. 2. Hollywood is the world's oldest national film industry and largest in terms of box office gross revenue. The worldwide theatrical market had a box office of $42.2 billion in 2019. The top 3 continents/regions by box office gross were Asia-Pacific with $17.8 billion, the US and Canada with $11.4 billion, and Europe. the Middle East and North Africa with $10.3 billion US. As of 2019, the largest markets by box office were, in decreasing order, the United States, China, Japan, South Korea, the United Kingdom, France, and India. 1. As of 2019, the countries with the largest number of film productions were India and the United States. 3. Artificial intelligence, AI, is potentially increasingly playing a role as technology advances. In Europe, significant centers of movie production are France, Germany, Spain, Italy, and the United Kingdom. 4. The cinema of China is one of three distinct historical threads of Chinese-language cinema together with the cinema of Hong Kong and the cinema of Taiwan. Cinema was introduced in China in 1896 and the first Chinese film, Dingjun Mountain, was made in 1905, with the film industry being centered on Shanghai in the first decades. China is the home of one of the largest film studios in the world, the Hengdian World Studios, and in 2010 it had the third largest film industry by number of feature films produced annually. For the next decade, the production companies were mainly foreign-owned, and the domestic film industry was centered on Shanghai, a thriving entrepot and the largest city in the Far East. In 1913, the first independent Chinese screenplay, The Difficult Couple, was filmed in Shanghai by Zhang Zhangqiu and Zhang Shichuan. 5. As the sixth generation, Clarification Needed, gained international exposure, many subsequent films were joint ventures and projects with international backers, but remained quite resolutely low-key and low-budget. Citation needed. Gia's Platform, 2000, was funded in part by Takashi Kitano's production house. 6. While his still life was shot on HD video. Still Life was a surprise edition and Golden Lion winner of the 2006 Venice International Film Festival. Still Life, which concerns provincial workers around the Three Gorges region, sharply contrasts with the works of fifth-generation Chinese directors like Zhang Yimou and Qin Kaiga, who were at the time producing House of Flying Daggers, 2004, and The Promise, 2005. It featured no star of international renown and was acted mostly by non-professionals. In 2012, the country became the second largest market in the world by box office receipts. In 2014, the gross box office in China was 29.6 billion yen, $4.82 billion US, with domestic films having a share of 55%. 7. China has also become a major hub of business for Hollywood studios. In 2018, China's gross box office was $8.90 billion. 10. In 2013, China's gross box office was 21.8 billion yen, $3.6 billion US. The second largest film market in the world by box office receipts. 11. It increased to $4.8 billion in 2014 box office grosser in film industry. 12. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2020, China overtook North America as world's biggest box office, being the first country to achieve this status. 13. China retained this status in 2021. However, in 2022, North America once again overtook China as the global box office's biggest market. The cinema of the United States, often generally referred to as Hollywood, has had a profound effect on cinema across the world since the early 20th century. The United States cinema, Hollywood, is the oldest film industry in the world and also the largest film industry in terms of revenue. Hollywood is the primary nexus of the U.S. film industry with established film study facilities such as the American Film Institute, LA Film School, and NYFA being established in the area. 15, however, 4 of the 6 major film studios are owned by East Coast companies. The major film studios of Hollywood, including Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, 20th Century Studios, and Paramount Pictures, are the primary source of the most commercially successful movies in the world. 16. 17. Including movies such as The Sound of Music, 1965, Star Wars, 1977, Titanic, 1997, and Avatar, 2009. American film studios today collectively generate several hundred films every year, making the United States the most prolific producers of films in the world. 18. Most shooting now, when takes place in California, New York, Louisiana, Georgia, and North Carolina. New Mexico, especially in the Albuquerque and Santa Fe areas, had been an increasingly popular state for filming. The television show Breaking Bad was set there, and movies such as No Country for Old Men and Rust were shot there. Citation needed: between 2009 and 2015, Hollywood consistently grossed $10 billion, or more, annually. 19. Hollywood's award ceremony, the Academy Awards, officially known as the Oscars, is held by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, AMPOS, every year, and as of 2019, more than 3,000 Oscars have been awarded. India is the largest producer of films in the world and the second oldest film industry in the world. 21. The country is home to some of the most important cities in the global film industry: Mumbai, previously Bombay, Hyderabad, and Chennai, Madras. In 2009, India produced a total of 2,961 films on celluloid. This figure includes 1,288 feature films. 22. Besides being the largest producer of films in the world, India also has the largest number of admissions. 23. Indian film industry is multilingual and the largest in the world in terms of ticket sales, but third largest in terms of revenue, mainly due to having among the lowest ticket prices in the world. 24. The industry is viewed mainly by a vast film-going Indian public. Citation needed. Indian film industry is also the dominant source of films and entertainment in its neighboring countries of South Asia. The three largest film industries in India are Hindi cinema, Telugu cinema, and Tamil cinema. The Hindi film industry is mostly concentrated in Mumbai, Bombay, and it is commonly referred to as Bollywood, a portmanteau of Bombay and Hollywood. Telugu cinema is primarily concentrated in Hyderabad and is commonly referred to as Tollywood. The Tamil film industry, i.e. Kollywood, is mostly concentrated in Chennai. Besides the mainstream commercial movies, India also offers a different approach to cinema: the parallel cinema. The parallel cinema movement originated in West Bengal around the 1950s. The movement was initially led by Bengali cinema. It later gained prominence in other film industries in India. Parallel cinema is a blanket term designated to a certain type of films that stray away from the conventions of popular mainstream cinema. Parallel cinema has assumed various forms throughout the years. Filmmakers associated with parallel cinema are Satyajit Ray, Mrinal Sen, Ritwik Ghatak. Parallel films are characterized by their rejection of popular forms like the songs and fight sequences, their affinity for rural settings, their use of method actors, and toned-down color palettes. The best examples of parallel cinema are the most famous films of Ray: Pather Panchali, 1955, Aparajito, 1956, and The World of Apu, 1959, which formed the Apu trilogy. Some other examples of such movies are Raincoat, Dobigat Mithya. Indian films have garnered popularity not only in the domestic market, but also in the international markets, with Dangal having an overseas gross revenue of $260 million, Secret Superstar and Bajrangi Bhaijaan making a gross revenue of $80.4 million, and Bahubali, The Beginning and Bahubali 2, The Conclusion, a blockbuster duology from Telugu cinema, grossing over $370 million globally. 25. In India, they have over 400 production houses with 32 corporate houses, also supporting the livelihood of more than 6 million people. The other largest film industries are Malayalam cinema, Kannada cinema, Bengali cinema, Cinema of West Bengal, and Marathi cinema, primarily located in Kochi, Bengaluru, Kolkata, and Mumbai, respectively. The remaining majority portion are spread across northern, eastern, western, and southern India, with Gujarati, Punjabi, Odia, Bhojpuri, Assamese cinema. However, there are several smaller centers of Indian film industries in regional languages, centered in the states where those languages are spoken. Indian cinema encloses several art forms like Indian classical music, folk music of different regions throughout the country, Indian classical dance, folk dance, and much more. Bollywood, Kollywood, and Tollywood forms the largest portion of the Indian film industry and is viewed all over the Indian subcontinent, and is increasingly, when Popular in Australia, UK, United States, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, Africa, Gulf countries, European countries, East Asia, and China. The largest film studio complex in the world is Ramoji Film City, located at Hyderabad, India, which opened in 1996 and measures 674 hectares, 1,666 acres. Comprising 47 sound stages, it has permanent sets ranging from railway stations to temples. 27. By 1986, India's annual film output had increased from 741 films produced annually to 833 films, making India the world's largest film producer. 28. As of 2014, Bollywood represents 45% of Indian net box office revenue, while Tamil and Telugu cinemas together represent 36%, and the rest of the regional film industries constitute 21% of Indian cinema. 29. By 2021, Telugu cinema, Tollywood, has overtaken both Hindi cinema, Bollywood, and Tamil cinema, Kollywood, emerged as the largest film industry in India in terms of box office. In 2023, Bollywood again emerged as the largest film industry in India. The cinema of Russia refers to the film industry in Russia, engaged in producing motion pictures in the Russian language. It began in the Russian Empire, widely developed in the Soviet Union, and the years following its dissolution. The Russian film industry would remain internationally recognized. In the 21st century, Russian cinema has become known internationally with films such as Hardcore Henry, 2015, Leviathan, 2014, Night Watch, 2004, and Brother, 1997. The Moscow International Film Festival began in Moscow during 1935. The Nika Award is the main annual national film award in Russia. Maria Germanova in Anna Karenina, 1914. The first film seen in the Russian Empire were brought in by the Lumiere brothers, who exhibited films in Moscow and St. Petersburg in May 1896. That same month, Lumiere cameraman Camille Cerf made the first film in Russia, recording the coronation of Nicholas II at the Kremlin. 32. Alexander Drankov produced the first Russian narrative film Stanka Razin, 1908, based on events told in a folk song and directed by Vladimir Romashkov. Among the notable Russian filmmakers of the era were Alexander Kanzhonkov and Ivan Mazhukin, who made Defense of Sevastopol in 1912. Yakov Protazanov made Departure of a Grand Old Man, 1912, a biographical film about Lev Tolstoy. Animation pioneer Ladislas Starovich made the first Russian animated film, and the first stop-motion puppet film with a story, in 1910, Lucani's Service. His other stop-motion shorts The Beautiful Lucanida, 1912, and The Cameraman's Revenge, 1912, produced for Alexander Kanzhonkov, are also among the first animated films. In the following years, Starovich made shorts based on fables such as The Grasshopper and the Ant, 1913, as well as World War I propaganda films. Citation needed. The United Kingdom has had a significant film industry for over a century. While film production reached an all-time high in 1936-34, the golden age of British cinema is usually thought to have occurred in the 1940s, during which the directors David Lean, 35, Michael Powell, with Emmerich Pressburger, 36, and Carol Reed, 37, produced their most highly acclaimed work. Many British actors have achieved worldwide fame and critical success, such as Maggie Smith, Roger Moore, Michael Caine, 38, Sean Connery, 39, Daniel Day-Lewis, Gary Oldman, and Kate Winslet, 40. Some of the films with the largest ever box office returns have been made in the United Kingdom, including the third and fourth highest grossing film series, Harry Potter and James Bond. 41. The first moving picture was shot in Leeds by Louis Le Prince in 1888, 42-43, and the first moving pictures developed on celluloid film were made in Hyde Park, London, in 1889 by British inventor William Freeze Green, 44. Who patented the process in 1890. Two of the top 8 highest-grossing films worldwide of all time, when have some British historical, cultural, or creative dimensions. Titanic, 1997, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2, 2011, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, 2003, and Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, 2005. Adding 4 more Harry Potter films and 1 more Lord of the Rings movie, plus the Tim Burton version of Alice in Wonderland, 2010, and more than half of the top 20 most financially successful, when films had a substantial British dimension. 45. Original research. British influence can also be seen with the English cycle of Disney animated films, which include Alice in Wonderland, 1951, Peter Pan, 1953, 101 Dalmatians, 1961, The Sword in the Stone, 1963, and The Jungle Book, 1967. 46. Disney first became interested in live-action films as a means of using financial reserves which had built up in Britain, and could not be repatriated owing to exchange controls, by making 2 films from Scottish and English sources. These were Treasure Island, 1950, and The Story of Robin Hood and His Merry Men, 1952, which were both successes at the box office. The studio continued to draw on British source material for its animated films after Walt Disney died in 1967, with the cartoon feature films Robin Hood, 1973, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh and the Rescuers, both 1977, one of many Disney to draw on A. Milne's characters. In the 1970s and 1980s, British studios established a reputation citation needed for great special effects in films such as Superman, 1978, Alien, 1979, and Batman, 1989. Some of this reputation was founded on the core of talent brought together for the filming of 2001, A Space Odyssey, 1968, who subsequently worked together on series and feature films for Jerry Anderson. The Bristol-based Aardman Animations is known for its stop-motion animation. In late 1998, Channel 4 launched their free-to-air film channel Film 4, a channel specifically designed to show films. It broadcasts from 11 a.m. British Summer Time and competes with pay television film network Sky Cinema. The London-based visual effects company Framestore, with Tim Webber the visual effects supervisor, have worked on the films The Dark Knight, 2008, and Gravity, 2013, with new techniques involved in Gravity taking 3 years to complete. 47. France. Main article, Cinema of France. France is the birthplace of cinema and was responsible for many of its significant contributions to the art form and the filmmaking process itself. 48. Several important cinematic movements, including the Nouvelle Vague, began in the country. It is noted for having a particularly strong film industry, due in part to protections afforded by the French government. 48. French cinema is sometimes intertwined with the cinema of foreign nations. Directors from nations such as Poland, Roman Polanski, Krzysztof Kieslowski, and Andrzej Zalewski, Argentina, Gaspar Noé and Edgardo Kozarinsky, Russia, Alexander Alexiev, Anatole Litvak, Austria, Michael Hanke and Georgia, Jela Babylani, Otar Iasiliani, are prominent in the ranks of French cinema. Conversely, some French directors have had careers in other countries, such as Luc Besson, Jacques Tourneur, or Francis Weber in the United States. Another element supporting this fact is that Paris has the highest density of cinemas in the world, measured by the number of movie theaters per inhabitant, 49, and that in most downtown Paris movie theaters, foreign movies which would be secluded to art houses, cinemas, and other places are shown alongside mainstream works. Philippe Bonnet realized, on February 2, 2000, the first digital cinema projection in Europe, with a DLP cinema technology developed by Texas Instruments, in Paris. 50. Paris also boasts the Site du Cinéma, a major studio north of the city, and Disney Studio, a theme park devoted to the cinema and the third theme park near the city behind Disneyland and Parc Asterix. 51. In 2015, France saw a record-breaking 300 feature-length films produced. 52. US and UK films only represented 44.9% of total admissions in 2014. This is largely due to the commercial strength of domestic productions, which accounted for 44.5% of admissions in 2014, 35.5% in 2015, and 35.3% in 2016. 53 In the mid-2000s, the French film industry was described as being closer to being entirely self-sufficient than any other country in Europe, recovering around 80 to 90% of their budget in revenues generated from the domestic market. 54 In 2018, French films had an international box office of €237 million, with 40 million admissions, down 52% from 2017, with Italy being the top foreign market. Japan has one of the oldest and largest film industries in the world. As of 2010, it was the fourth largest by number of feature films produced. 56 movies have been produced in Japan since 1897, when the first foreign cameraman arrived. Citation needed. In a sight and sound list of the best films produced in Asia, Japanese works made up 8 of the top 12, with Tokyo Story, 1953, ranked number 1. Citation needed. Tokyo Story also topped the 2012 Sight and Sound Directors poll of the top 50 greatest films of all time, dethroning Citizen Kane, 57-58, while Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, 1954, was voted the greatest foreign-language film of all time in BBC's 2018 poll of 209 critics in 43 countries. 59. Japan has won the Academy Award for the Best Foreign Language Film 4 times. Rashomon, Gate of Hell, Samurai Eye, Musashi Miyamoto, and Departures, more than any other Asian country. Along with China, Iran has been lauded as one of the best exporters of cinema in the 1990s. 61. Some critics now, rank Iran as the world's most important national cinema, artistically, with a significance that invites comparison to Italian neorealism and similar movements in past decades. 60. German filmmaker Werner Herzog has praised Iranian cinema as one of the world's most important artistic cinemas. 62. It is notable that Iran has won 2 Academy Awards and has been nominated 3 times, which is ranked 11th in the world cinema, 2nd in Asia after Japan, and 1st in the Middle East. Turkey. The Turkish film market stands out in the pan-European landscape as the only market where national films regularly outperform U.S. films. 63. In 2013, it had 1.2 million number of admissions and 87 feature films were released. 64. Between 2004 and 2014, the estimated 12.9 million admissions generated on non-national European markets only accounted for 7% of total admissions to Turkish films in Europe, including Turkey. This was the 3rd lowest share among the 30 European markets for which such data are available and clearly illustrates the strong dependence of Turkish films on the domestic market, a feature which is shared by Polish and Russian films. In 2014, Kiswakusu, Winter Sleep, won the Cannes Film Festival Award for Best Film. 66. In 2013, Turkey still ranked behind the Netherlands in terms of the box office with just over €200 million as Europe's 8th largest box office market ahead of Sweden and Switzerland, with a clear gap to the top 6 markets, all of which registered GBO. Between €504 million, Spain, up to over €1 billion in France, the UK, Germany, and the Russian Federation. 67. Cinema going is comparatively cheap in Turkey. In 2013, a cinema ticket cost an average of €4 in Turkey, and this was estimated to be the lowest average ticket price, measured in euro. In Europe, marginally cheaper than in several Central and Eastern Europe markets like Croatia, Romania, Lithuania, or Bulgaria, subject to exchange rates. 68. A limited number of silent films were made in Egypt beginning in 1896. 1927's Layla was notable as the first full-length feature. Cairo's film industry became a regional force with the coming of sound. Between 1930 and 1936, various small studios produced at least 44 feature films. In 1936, Studio Misr, financed by industrialist Talat Harb, emerged as the leading Egyptian equivalent to Hollywood's major studios, a role the company retained for 3 decades, 69. Of the more than 4,000 short and feature-length films made in MENA region since 1908, more than three-quarters were Egyptian films. Egyptian films are typically spoken in the Egyptian Arabic dialect. Since 1976, Cairo has held the annual Cairo International Film Festival, CIFF, which is accredited by the International Federation of Film Producers Association. In 1996, the Egyptian Media Production City, EMPC, was inaugurated in 6th of October City south of Cairo, although by 2001, only one of the 29 planned studios was operational. 72. Censorship, formerly an obstacle to freedom of expression, has decreased remarkably by 2012, when the Egyptian cinema had begun to tackle boldly issues ranging from sexual issues, 73, to heavy government criticism. 74. The 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s are generally considered the golden age of Egyptian cinema. As in the West, films responded to the popular imagination, with most falling into predictable genres, happy endings being the norm, and many actors making careers out of playing strongly typed parts. In the words of one critic, if an Egyptian film intended for popular audiences lacked any of these prerequisites, it constituted a betrayal of the unwritten contract with the spectator, the results of which would manifest themselves in the box office. 75. Since the 1990s, Egypt's cinema has gone in separate directions. Smaller art films attract some international attention, but sparse attendance at home. Popular films, often broad comedies such as What a Lie, and the extremely profitable works of comedian Mohammed Saad, battled to hold audiences either drawn to Western films or, increasingly, wary of the perceived immorality of film. The term cinema of Korea, or Korean cinema, encompasses the motion picture industries of North and South Korea. As with all aspects of Korean life during the past century, the film industry has often been at the mercy of political events, from the late Joseon dynasty to the Korean War to domestic governmental interference. While both countries have relatively robust film industries today, when citation needed, only South Korean films have achieved wide international acclaim. North Korean films tend to portray their communist or revolutionary themes. South Korean films enjoyed a golden age during the late 1950s and 1960s. By 2005, South Korea had become one of few nations to watch more domestic than imported films in theaters, 77, due largely to laws placing limits on the number of foreign films able to be shown per theater per year, 78. In the theaters, Korean films must be played for 73 days per year since 2006. On cable TV, 25% domestic film quota will be reduced to 20% after core US FTA, 79. The cinema of South Korea had a total box office gross in the country in 2015 of 884 billion Korean wons and had 113 million admissions, 52% of the total admissions. Off Plus Camera Film Festival in Krakow, 2012, with Andrzej Surin, Daniel Olbrychski, and Wojciech Zoniak on stage. The history of cinema of Poland is almost as long as the history of cinematography, and it has universally recognized achievements, even though Polish films tend to be less commercially available than films from several other European nations. After World War II, the communist government built an auteur-based national cinema, trained hundreds of new directors, and empowered them to make films. Filmmakers like Roman Polanski, Krzysztof Kieślowski, Agnieszka Holland, Andrzej Wajda, Andrzej Zalewski, Andrzej Monk, and Jerzy Skolimowski impacted the development of Polish filmmaking. In more recent years, the industry has been producer-led, with finance being the key to a film being made, and with many independent filmmakers of all genres, Polish productions tend to be more inspired by American film. The Polish film school was under the heavy influence of Italian neorealists. It took advantage of the liberal changes in Poland after 1956 Polish October to portray the complexity of Polish history during World War II and German occupation. Among the most important topics were the generation of former Home Army soldiers and their role in post-war Poland, and the national tragedies like the German concentration camps and the Warsaw Uprising. The political changes allowed the group to speak more openly about the recent history of Poland. However, the rule of censorship was still strong when it came to history after 1945, and there were very few films on contemporary events. This marked the major difference between the members of the Polish film school and Italian neorealists. The Polish film school was the first to underline the national character of Poles and one of the first artistic movements in Central Europe to openly oppose the official guidelines of socialist realism. The members of the movement tend to underline the role of the individual as opposed to collectivity. There were two trends within the movement. Young directors such as Andrzej Wajda generally studied the idea of heroism, while another group, the most notable being Andrzej Munch, analyzed the Polish character via irony, humor, and dissection of national myths. The biggest film studio in Southeast Asia was opened on November 5, 2011 on 10 hectares of land in Nomsa, Batam Island, Indonesia. Infinite Frameworks, IFW, is a Singapore-based company close to Batam Island, which is owned by a consortium, 90% of which is held by Indonesian businessman and film producer Mike Williwan, 80. In 2010 to 2011, due to the substantial increase in value-added tax applied to foreign films, cinemas no longer had access to many foreign films, including Oscar-winning films. Foreign films include major box offices from the West and other major film producers of the world. This caused a massive ripple effect on the country's economy. It is assumed that this increased the purchase of unlicensed DVDs. However, even copyright-violating DVDs took longer to obtain. The minimum cost to view a foreign film not screened locally was 1 million rupiah. This was equivalent to $100, as it includes a plane ticket to Singapore. The cinema of Pakistan, or simply Pakistani cinema, Urdu, refers to Pakistan's film industry. Most of the feature films shot in Pakistan are in Urdu, the national language, but may also include films in English, the official language, and regional languages such as Punjabi, Pashto, Balochi, and Sindhi. Lahore has been described as the epicenter of Pakistani cinema, giving rise to the term Lollywood as a portmanteau of Lahore and Hollywood. Before the separation of Bangladesh, Pakistan had three main film production centers: Lahore, Karachi, and Dhaka. The regime of Muhammad Zia-ul-Haq, VCRs, film piracy, the introduction of entertainment taxes, strict laws based upon ultra-conservative jurisprudence, was an obstacle to the industry's growth. 82, once thriving. The cinema in Pakistan had a sudden collapse in the 1980s, and by the 2000s, an industry that once produced an average of 80 films annually was now struggling to even churn out few movies. However, the boom in the television industry in Karachi, which gave rise to bigger privately owned media houses, led to a revival of the Pakistan film industry in the early 2010s. Karachi, now the biggest production center of the film industry in Pakistan, produces Urdu, English, and Sindhi language Pakistani movies. Lahore is the second big film producer now, mostly Punjabi movies, followed by Peshawar, where mostly Pashto films are produced. Films are also being produced on a very small scale from Islamabad, Urdu and English movies, and Quetta, Balochi movies. Pakistani films are gaining market in the local circuit and international markets like Gulf countries, UK Europe, US North America, and Far East. Many Pakistani movies made their ways to Oscar's foreign language film category, i.e. The Day Shall Dawn, 1959, The Veil, Gunhat, 1963, Zindabad, 2013, Dakhtar, 2014, Moore, 2015, Mamir, 2016, Sawin, 2017, Cake, 2018, Lal Kavutar, 2019. Two Pakistani documentary films won the Oscars for the Best Documentary Film. These are Saving Face, 2012, and A Girl in the River, 2016. Pakistani movies, especially Urdu movies, revolve around family drama, romance, love stories, comedy, thriller, social matters, and political issues. In the contemporary era, some Pakistani films have gained international acclaim. These include Khuda Ke Liye, In the Name of God, Bull, Verna, Zindabad, Lode Wedding, Wrong No, Cake, Tifa in Trouble, Lal Kabutar, Monmir, More, The Legend of Malajot. Cinema of the Philippines began with the introduction of the first moving pictures to the country on August 31, 1897, at the Salon de Pertierra in Manila. The following year, local scenes were shot on film for the first time by a Spaniard, Antonio Ramos, using the Lumiere cinematograph, 83. While most early filmmakers and producers in the country were mostly wealthy enterprising foreigners and expatriates, on September 12, 1919, Dalagang Bukid, Country Maiden, a movie based on a popular musical play, was the first movie made and shown by Filipino filmmaker Jose Nepomuceno, 84, dubbed the father of Philippine cinema. His work marked the start of cinema as an art form in the Philippines. Films have been made in Israel since before independence in 1948, 86. The industry is relatively small economically, but Israeli films have been nominated for more Academy Awards for Best Foreign Language Film than any other country in the Middle East. The government is attempting to attract foreign companies to film in Israel by offering subsidies for production costs. 87. Hong Kong is a filmmaking hub for the Chinese-speaking world, including the worldwide diaspora and East Asia in general. For decades, it was the third-largest motion picture industry in the world, after India and the US, and the second-largest exporter of films, 88. Despite an industry crisis starting in the mid-1990s and Hong Kong's return to Chinese sovereignty in July 1997, Hong Kong film has retained much of its distinctive identity and continues to play a prominent part on the world cinema stage. Unlike many film industries, Hong Kong has enjoyed little to no direct government support, through either subsidies or import quotas. It has always been a thoroughly commercial cinema, concentrating on crowd-pleasing genres like comedy and action, and heavily reliant on formulas, sequels, and remakes. Typically of commercial cinemas, its heart is a highly developed star system, which in this case also features substantial overlap with the pop music industry. The Trinidad and Tobago Film Company is the national agency that was established in 2006 to further the development of the film industry. Trinidad and Tobago puts on several film festivals, which are organized by different committees and organizations. These include the Secondary School Short Film Festival and Smartphone Film Festival organized by Trinidad and Tobago Film Company. There is also an annual Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival, which runs for 2 weeks in the latter half of September. Trinidad and Tobago's film sector began emerging in the late 1950s to early 1960s, and by the late 1970s, there were a handful of local productions, both feature film and television. 89. The first full-length feature film to be produced in Trinidad and Tobago was The Right and the Wrong, 1970, by Indian director-writer-producer Harbans Kumar. The screenplay was written by the Trinidadian playwright Freddie Kassoon. 90. The rest of the 20th century saw a couple more feature films being made in the country, with Bin, 1974, being singled out by Bruce Paddington as one of the most important films to be produced in Trinidad and Tobago, and one of the classics of Caribbean cinema. 91. It was one of the first films to feature an almost entirely Trinidadian cast and crew. 92. There was a rise in Trinidadian film production in the 2000s. Films such as Ivan the Terrible, 2004, Sister God, 2006, I'm Santana, The Movie, 2012, and God Loves the Fighter, 2013, were released both locally and internationally. Sister God had its world premiere at the 2006 Toronto International Film Festival. Nepali film does not have a very long film history, but the industry has its place in the cultural heritage of the country. It is often referred to as Nepali Kalkaitra, which translates to Nepali films in English. The terms Kollywood and Kollywood are also used as a portmanteau of Kathmandu and Hollywood Kollywood, however is more frequently used to refer to Tamil cinema. Citation needed. Chaka Panja has been considered the highest-grossing film of all time in Nepali film industry and Kohinoor the second highest. The Nepali films The Black Hen, 2015, and Kagbini, 2006, received international acclaim. Citation needed. The Nepali feature film White Sun, Sito Surya, received the Best Film Award at the 27th Singapore International Film Festival (SCIF) in 2016. Sri Lankan director Alongo Ram's film Tintaigo is the first Sri Lankan film to be remade into other languages including Spanish, Italian, English, Hindi, Telugu, and Malayalam, and France and Belgium in the future. After gaining positive reviews from critics in multiple film festivals, the film won the Special Jury Award at the Tallinn Black Nights Film Festival in 2023 and was screened at the Glasgow Film Festival and Mostra in 2024. It got selected at the second Ikoji Impol International Film Festival 2025 under the international competition, fiction section. Les Frères Lumière released the first projection with the cinematograph in Paris on December 28, 1895. The French film industry in the late 19th century and early 20th century was the world's most important. Auguste and Louis Lumière invented the cinematograph, and their La Vie d'un train en gare de la Cité in Paris in 1895 is considered by many historians as the official birth of cinematography. The first feature film to be made was the 1906 Australian Silent: The Story of the Kelly Gang, an account of the notorious gang led by Ned Kelly that was directed and produced by the Melburnians Dan Barry and Charles Tate. It ran continuously for 80 minutes, 94. In the early 1910s, the film industry had fully emerged with D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation. Also in the early 1900s, motion picture production companies from New York and New Jersey started moving to California because of the good weather and longer days. Although electric lights existed at that time, none were powerful enough to adequately expose film. The best source of illumination for movie production was natural sunlight. Besides the moderate, dry climate, they were also drawn to the state because of its open spaces and wide variety of natural scenery. The first successful permanent theater showing only films was the Nickelodeon, which was opened in Pittsburgh in 1905-98. By then, there were enough films several minutes long available to fill a program running for at least half an hour, and which could be changed weekly when the local audience became bored with it. Other exhibitors in the United States quickly followed suit, and within 2 years, there were 8,000 of these Nickelodeons in operation across the United States. The American experience led to a worldwide boom in the production and exhibition of films from 1906 onwards. By 1907, purpose-built cinemas for motion pictures were being opened across the United States, Britain, and France. The films were often shown with the accompaniment of music provided by a pianist, though there could be more musicians. There were also very few larger cinemas in some of the biggest cities. Initially, the majority of films in the programs were PAV films, but this changed fairly quickly as the American companies cranked up production. The program was made up of just a few films, and the show lasted around 30 minutes. The reel of film, of maximum length 1,000 feet, 300 meters, which usually contained one individual film, became the standard unit of film production and exhibition in this period. The program was changed twice or more a week, but went up to 5 changes of program a week after a couple of years. In general, cinemas were set up in the established entertainment districts of the cities. In 1907, PAV began renting their films to cinemas through film exchanges rather than selling the films outright. 100. The litigation over patents between all the major American filmmaking companies had continued, and at the end of 1908, they decided to pull their patents and form a trust to use them to control the American film business. The companies concerned were PAV, Edison, Biograph, Vitagraph, Lubin, Selig, Essanay, Kalem, and the Klein Optical Company, a major importer of European films. The George Eastman Company, the only manufacturer of film stock in the United States, was also part of the combine, which was called the Motion Picture Patents Company, NPPC, and Eastman Kodak agreed to only supply the members with film stock. License fees for distributing and projecting films were extracted from all distributors and exhibitors. The producing companies that were part of the trust were allocated production quotas, 2 reels, i.e. films, a week for the biggest ones, 1 reel a week for the smaller ones, which were supposed to be enough to fill the programs of the licensed exhibitors. But the market was bigger than that. For although 6,000 exhibitors signed with the MPPC, about 2,000 others did not. A minority of the exchanges, i.e. distributors, stayed outside the MPPC, and in 1909 these independent exchanges immediately began to fund new film-producing companies. By 1911 there were enough independent and foreign films available to program all the shows of the independent exhibitors, and in 1912 the independents had nearly half of the market. The MPPC had effectively been defeated in its plan to control the whole United States market, and the government antitrust action, which only now started against the MPPC, was not necessary to defeat it. 100. In the early 20th century, before Hollywood, the United States motion picture industry was mainly based in Fort Lee, New Jersey across the Hudson River from New York City. 101, 102, 103. In need of a winter headquarters, movie makers were attracted to Jacksonville, Florida due to its warm climate, exotic locations, excellent rail access, and cheaper labor, earning the city the title of the winter film capital of the world. 104. New York-based Calum Studios was the first to open a permanent studio in Jacksonville in 1908. 105. Over the next decade, more than 30 silent film companies established studios in town, including Metro Pictures, later MGM, Edison Studios, Majestic Films, Kingby Film Company, Vim Comedy Company, Norman Studios, Gaumont Studios, and the Lubin Manufacturing Company. Citation needed. The first motion picture made in Technicolor and the first feature-length color movie produced in the United States. The Gulf Between was also filmed on location in Jacksonville in 1917. Jacksonville's mostly conservative residents, however, objected to the hallmarks of the early movie industry, such as car chases in the streets, simulated bank robberies and fire alarms in public places, and even the occasional riot. In 1917, conservative Democrat John W. Martin was elected mayor on the platform of taming the city's movie industry. 104. By that time, Southern California was emerging as the major movie production center, thanks in large part to the move of film pioneers like William Seelig and D.W. Griffith to the area. These factors quickly sealed the demise of Jacksonville as a major film destination. Citation needed. Another factor for the industry's move west was that up until 1913, most American film production was still carried out around New York, but due to the monopoly of Thomas A. Edison, Inc.'s film patents and its litigious attempts to preserve it, many filmmakers moved to Southern California, starting with Seelig in 1909. 108. 109. The sunshine and scenery was important for the production of westerns, which came to form a major American film genre with the first cowboy stars, G.M. Anderson, Bronco Billy, and Tom Mix. Seelig pioneered the use of fairly wild animals from a zoo for a series of exotic adventures, with the actors being menaced or saved by the animals. Calum Company sent film crews to places in America and abroad to film stories in the actual places they were supposed to have happened. 110. Calum also pioneered the female action heroine from 1912, with Ruth Roland playing starring roles in their westerns. 111. Better source needed. In France, Path retained its dominant position, followed still by Gaumont, and then other new companies that appeared to cater to the film boom. A film company with a different approach was Film Dar. Film Dar was set up at the beginning of 1908 to make films of a serious artistic nature. Their declared program was to make films using only the best dramatists, artists, and actors. 112. The first of these was L'assassinat du Duc de Guise, the assassination of the Duc de Guise, a historical subject set in the court of Henri III. This film used leading actors from the Comédie Française and had a special accompanying score written by Camille Saint-Saëns. The other French majors followed suit, and this wave gave rise to the English-language description of films with artistic pretensions aimed at a sophisticated audience as art films. By 1910, the French film companies were starting to make films as long as 2, or even 3 reels, though most were still 1 reel long. This trend was followed in Italy, Denmark, and Sweden. 113. In Britain, The Cinematograph Act 1909 was the first primary legislation to specifically regulate the film industry. Film exhibitions often take place in temporary venues, and the use of highly flammable cellulose nitrate for film, combined with limelight illumination, created a significant fire hazard. The act specified a strict building code which required, amongst other things, that the projector be enclosed within a fire-resisting enclosure. 114. The Babelsberg studio near Berlin was the first large-scale film studio in the world, founded in 1912, and the forerunner to Hollywood. It still produces global blockbusters every year. The Babelsberg studio near Berlin in Germany was the first large-scale film studio in the world, founded in 1912, and the forerunner to Hollywood with its several establishments of large studios in the early 20th century. Hollywood. Further information. Cinema of the United States. The first movie studio in Hollywood area, Nestor Studios, was founded in 1911 by Al Christie for David Horsley. Other East Coast studios had already moved production to Los Angeles. Over time, Hollywood came to be so strongly associated with the film industry that the word Hollywood is now used colloquially to refer to the entire American film industry. In 1913, Cecil B. DeMille, in association with Jesse Lasky, leased a barn with studio facilities in Hollywood where The Squaw Man, 1914, was made. It is now the location of the Hollywood Heritage Museum. The Charlie Chaplin Studios were built in 1917. The site was also used by Kling Studios for the Superman TV series. Red Skelton, who used the sound stages for his CBS TV variety show, and CBS, which filmed the TV series Perry Mason there. From 1967 to 1999, it was the home of Herb Alpert's A&M Records and Tijuana Brass Enterprises. In 1969, the Los Angeles Cultural Heritage Board named it a historical cultural monument. In 2000, it became the home of the Jim Henson Company, home of the Muppets. The noted Hollywood sign originally read Hollywoodland. It was erected in 1923 to advertise a new housing development in the hills above Hollywood. In 1949, the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce stepped in and removed the last 4 letters and repaired the others. It is a registered trademark and cannot be used without the permission of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. The first Academy Awards presentation ceremony took place on May 16, 1929. The period between the years 1927, the effective end of the silent era, to 1948 is considered the age of the Hollywood studio system, or the Golden Age of Hollywood. In a landmark 1948 court decision, the Supreme Court ruled that movie studios could not own theaters and play only the movies of their studio and movie stars. Thus an era of Hollywood history ended. Tollywood is the Bengali-language film industry of India. Started by Royal Bioscope Company in 1898 by Hirilal Sen, along with Madhulal Sen, Debokilal Sen and Bholanath Gupta. Combining live theater performances of actors, the Bengali industry was notable for using sound as an important part of the drama in its bioscope format, whose cinematic language was extremely different from Western silent films. This was followed by Jamshedji Framji Mudun of the Elphinstone Bioscope Company, who also controlled Mudun Theatre Company. J.J. Mudun became managing director of Mudun Theatres after the death of his father in 1923, and Mudun Theatres reached a peak in the late 1920s, when it owned 127 theaters and controlled half of the country's box office. Mudun Theatres produced several popular and landmark films till 1937, parallel to works of 20s Bengali stars like Dhirendra Nath Ganguly, who started the Indo-British Film Company, the first Bengali-owned production company, in 1918. The rise of the industry followed in the 1930s to 1940s when a diversity of films were made. Many prints were destroyed by fire. The prints and records of films from 1937 to 1947 films were majorly destroyed, but this period in Bengal served as the age of political films in India, which was supremely influential for the struggle for Indian independence. After 1947, the industry saw a new era of creative studio system collaborators who made films under the name of Agila. This saw a renaissance of commercial films and musicals where stars like Uttam Kumar and Suchitra Sen mesmerized the audience with their captivating screen presence and subdued performances. Ritvik Kugatuk, Satyajit Ray, Tapan Sinha, Mrinal Sen, and Rituparno Ghosh were the other notable directors whose works influenced world cinema to an incomparable degree. The name of the industry was coined after the place Taliban, which also served as a cheeky tribute to Hollywood. The cinema of Egypt refers to the flourishing film industry based in Cairo, which is known to be the Hollywood of the MENA region. 137. In 1896, a limited number of silent films was made in Egypt beginning in 1896. 1927's Layla was notable as the first full-length feature. Cairo's film industry became a regional force with the coming of sound. Between 1930 and 1936, various small studios produced at least 44 feature films. In 1936, Studio Misr, financed by industrialist Talat Harb, emerged as the leading Egyptian equivalent to Hollywood's major studios, a role the company retained for 3 decades. Historians disagree in determining the beginning of cinema in Egypt. Some say in 1896 when the first film was watched in Egypt, while others date the beginning from June 20, 1907 with a short documentary film about the visit of Khedive Abbas Hilmi II to the Institute of Mircea Abul Abbas in Alexandria. In 1917, the director Muhammad Karim established a production company in Alexandria. The company produced 2 films, Dead Flowers and Honor the Bedouin, which were shown in the city of Alexandria in early 1918. Since 1976, the capital has held the annual Cairo International Film Festival, which has been accredited by the International Federation of Film Producers Associations. 139. There is also another 12 festivals. Of the more than 4,000 short and feature-length films made in MENA region since 1908, more than 3/4 were Egyptian films. Egyptian films are typically spoken in the Egyptian Arabic dialect. Since then, more than 4,000 films have been produced in Egypt, 3/4 of the total Arab production. Historian Samir Kasser notes, 2004, that Misr Studios in particular, despite their ups and downs, were to make Cairo the 3rd capital of the world's film industry, after Hollywood and Bombay, but ahead of Italy's Cinecittà. 142. Egypt is the most productive country in the Middle East in the field of film production, and the one with the most developed media system. 143. Nollywood is a sobriquet that originally referred to the Nigerian film industry. 144. The origin of the term dates back to the early 2000s, traced to an article in the New York Times. 145. 146. Due to the history of evolving meanings and contexts, there is no clear or agreed-upon definition for the term, which has made it a subject of several controversies. The origin of the term Nollywood remains unclear. Jonathan Haynes traced the earliest usage of the word to a 2002 article by Matt Steinglass in the New York Times, where it was used to describe Nigerian cinema. 145. 146. Charles Egui noted that Norimitsuo Nishi also used the name in a September 2002 article he wrote for the New York Times. 147. 148. The term continues to be used in the media to refer to the Nigerian film industry, with its definition later assumed to be a portmanteau of the words Nigeria and Hollywood, the American major film hub. The definition of which films are considered Nollywood has always been a subject of debate. Alex Iyengo defined Nollywood as the totality of activities taking place in the Nigerian film industry, be it in English, Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, Itsekiri, Edo, Efik, Ijaw, Arobo, or any other of the over 300 Nigerian languages. He further stated that the historical trajectory of Nollywood started since the pre- and post-independent Nigeria, with the theatrical, stage, and cinematic, celluloid, efforts of the likes of Chief Hubert Ogund, Chief Amida, Baba Sala, Ade Love, Edia Boma, and a few others. 150. The influence of the Nigerian movie industry, often referred to informally as Nollywood, has influenced all African countries. By the end of 2013, the film industry reportedly hit a record-breaking revenue of 1.72 trillion Nigerian nairas, $4.1 billion US. As of 2014, The industry was worth 853.9 billion Nigerian nairas, 5.1 billion US dollars, making it the third most valuable film industry in the world behind the United States and India. 153, it made up about 1.4% of Nigeria's GDP. This was attributed to the increase in the number of quality films produced and more formal distribution methods. 154. The profitability of a film studio is crucially dependent on picking the right film projects and involving the right management and creative teams, cast, direction, visual design, score, photography, costume, set design, editing, and many additional specialties, but it also depends heavily on choosing the right scale and approach to film promotion, control over receipts through technologies such as digital rights management, DRM, sophisticated accounting practices, and management of ancillary revenue streams. In the extreme, for a major media franchise centered on film, the film might itself be only one large component of many large contributions to total franchise revenue. The film industry is a brutally competitive winner-take-all market driven by wildly fluctuating, non-linear processes. 155. Box office revenue is highly concentrated in a small number of very successful films, and film industry market share is also highly concentrated in the film studios lucky enough to make such films. 155. But the market is extremely volatile, and it is impossible to predict in advance who will become the market winner at any given moment, or how long their domination will last. 155. The dominant films and film studios change places dramatically and often. The process of creating a motion picture. Traditionally, filmmaking is thought of as a process specific for the creation of feature films. However, its iconic methodology has been used in the creation of other types of filmed products, including movies and episodic series for streaming and network broadcasting, commercials and advertisements, animations, music videos, documentaries. It involves a number of distinct stages, including an initial story idea or commission, followed by screenwriting, casting, pre-production, shooting, sound recording, post-production, and screening the finished product before an audience, which may result in a film release, distribution, and exhibition. The process is nonlinear in that the filmmaker typically shoots the script out of sequence, repeats shots as needed, and puts them together through editing later. Filmmaking takes place in a variety of economic, social, and political contexts around the world, and uses a wide range of technologies and cinematic techniques. While originally films were recorded on photographic film, most modern filmmaking is now digital. 1. The production of a film typically consists of 5 major stages. The first is development, where the initial idea for the film is explored, rights to intellectual property may be secured, the screenplay is written, and financing is obtained. This is followed by pre-production, where all the arrangements and preparations for the shoot are made, including hiring cast and crew, scouting and securing locations, and constructing sets. The third stage is production, which is when the raw footage and other elements of the film are recorded. After filming is complete, the project enters post-production. In this stage, the raw footage is edited, sound is mixed, visual effects are added, and a musical score is composed and recorded. The final stage is distribution, where the finished film is released to audiences. This involves marketing and promotion, and the film may be shown in cinemas, released on home video, or made available through streaming services, cable, or television. Some filmmakers operate outside of the mainstream system and engage in independent filmmaking, which has become more accessible with the advent of affordable digital technology and streaming platforms. Production stages. Film production consists of 5 major stages. Frowny face 2. Development. Ideas for the film are created, rights to existing intellectual properties are purchased, etc., and the screenplay is written. Financing for the project is sought and obtained. Pre-production. Arrangements and preparations are made for the shoot, such as hiring cast and film crew, selecting locations, and constructing sets. Production. The raw footage and other elements of the film are recorded during the film shoot, including principal photography. Post-production. The images, sound, and visual effects of the recorded film are edited and combined into a finished product. Distribution. The completed film is distributed, marketed, and screened in cinemas and released on home video to be viewed at home. Development. The development stage contains both general and specific components. Each film studio has a yearly retreat where their top creative executives meet and interact on a variety of areas and topics they wish to explore through collaborations with producers and screenwriters, and then ultimately, directors, actors, and actresses. They choose trending topics from the media and real life, as well as many other sources, to determine their yearly agenda. For example, in a year when action is popular, they may wish to explore that topic in one or more movies. Sometimes, they purchase the rights to articles, best-selling novels, plays, the remaking of older films, stories with some basis in real life through a person or event, a video game, fairy tale, comic book, graphic novel. Likewise, research through surveys may inform their decisions. They may have had blockbusters from their previous year and wish to explore a sequel. They will additionally acquire a completed and independently financed and produced film. Such notable examples are Little Miss Sunshine, The English Patient, and Roma. Studios hold general meetings with producers and screenwriters about original story ideas. In my decade working as a writer, I knew of only a few that were sold and fewer that made it to the screen. Relay's writer Wayne Powers. Alan Watt, writer-director and founder of the LA Writers Lab, confirmed that completed original screenplays, referred to as specs, make big news when they sell. But these make up a very small portion of movies that are ultimately given the green light to be produced by the president of a studio. The executives return from the retreat with fairly well-established instructions. They spread these concepts through the industry community, especially to producers they have deals with. Traditional studios will have those producers in offices on their lots. Also, agents for screenwriters are made aware. This results in a pairing of producers with writers, where they develop a take, a basic story idea that utilizes the concept given by studio executives. Often it is a competition with several pairings meeting with studio executives and pitching their take. Very few writing jobs are from original ideas brought to studios by producers or writers. Perhaps one movie a year will be a spec script that was purchased. Once the producer and writer have sold their approach to the desired subject matter, they begin to work. However, many writers and producers usually pass before a particular concept is realized in a way that is awarded a green light to production. Production of Unforgiven, which earned Oscars for its director/star Clint Eastwood, as well as its screenwriter, David Webb Peoples, required 15 years. Powers related that the Italian job took approximately 8 years from concept to screen, which, as Powers added, is average. And most concepts turned into paid screenplays wind up gathering dust on some executive shelf, never to see production. Writers have different styles and creative processes, some have stronger track records than others. Because of this, how the development process proceeds from there, and how much detail a writer returns to the studio to divulge before beginning writing can vary greatly. Screenwriters are often protected by the union, the Writers Guild of America, or WGA. The WGA allows a screenwriter to contract for one draft, one revision, and one polish. Bob Isle, writer and member of the Guild Board, states, additional writing requires an extension of contracts and payment for additional work. They are paid 80% of their fee after the first draft. Preliminary discussions are minimal with studio executives, but might be quite detailed with the producer. Next, a screenwriter writes a screenplay over a period of several months, or however long it takes. Deadlines are in their contracts, but there is no pressure to adhere to them. Again, every writer's process and speed vary. The screenwriter may rewrite the script several times to improve dramatization, clarity, structure, characters, dialogue, and overall style. Script coverage, a freelance job held by recent university graduates, does not feed scripts into the system that are ready for production nor already produced. Coverage is a way for young screenwriters to be read, and their ideas might make their way up to an executive or famous producer and result in meet and greets, where relations with up-and-comers can be formed. but it has not historically yielded ideas studios pursue into production. The studio is the film distributor who at an early stage attempts to choose a slate of concepts that are likely to have market appeal and find potential financial success. Hollywood distributors consider factors such as the film genre, the target audience and assumed audience, the historical success of similar films, the actors who might appear in the film, and potential directors. All these factors imply a certain appeal of the film to a possible audience. Not all films make a profit from the theatrical release alone, however, the studio mainly targets the opening weekend and the second weekend to make most domestic profits. Occasionally, a film called a word-of-mouth film does not market strongly, but its success spreads by word of mouth. It slowly gains its audience. These are special circumstances, and these films may remain in theaters for 5 months, while a typical film run is closer to 5 weekends. Further earnings result from pay television purchases, foreign market purchases, and DVD sales to establish worldwide distribution gross of a film. Once a screenplay is greenlit, directors and actors are attached and the film proceeds into the pre-production stage, although sometimes development and pre-production stages will overlap. Projects which fail to obtain a green light may have protracted difficulties in making the transition to pre-production and enter a phase referred to as development hell for extended period of time, or until developmental turnaround. Analogous to almost any business venture, financing of a film project deals with the study of filmmaking as the management and procurement of investments. It includes the dynamics of assets that are required to fund the filmmaking and liabilities incurred during the filmmaking over the time period from early development through the management of profits and losses after distribution under conditions of different degrees of uncertainty and risk. The practical aspects of filmmaking finance can also be defined as the science of the money management of all phases involved in filmmaking. Film finance aims to price assets based on their risk level and their expected rate of return based upon anticipated profits and protection against losses. Pre-production. See also, pre-production. In pre-production, every step of actually creating the film is carefully designed and planned. This is the phase where one would narrow down all the options of the production. It is where all the planning takes place before the camera rolls and sets the overall vision of the project. The production company is created and a production office established. The film is pre-visualized by the director and may be storyboarded with the help of illustrators and concept artists. A production budget is drawn up to plan expenditures for the film. For major productions, insurance is procured to protect against accidents. Pre-production also includes working out the shoot location and casting process. The producer hires a line manager or a production manager to create the schedule and budget for the film. The nature of the film and the budget determine the size and type of crew used during filmmaking. Many Hollywood blockbusters employ a cast and crew of hundreds, while a low-budget, independent film may be made by a skeleton crew of 8 or 9, or fewer. These are typical crew positions. Storyboard artist creates visual images to help the director and production designer communicate their ideas to the production team. Director is primarily responsible for the storytelling, creative decisions, and acting of the film. Assistant director, AD, manages the shooting schedule and logistics of the production, among other tasks. There are several types of AD, each with different responsibilities. Film producer hires the film's crew. Unit production manager manages the production budget and production schedule. They also report, on behalf of the production office, to the studio executives or financiers of the film. Location manager finds and manages film locations. Nearly all pictures feature segments that are shot in the controllable environment of a studio sound stage, while outdoor sequences call for filming on location. Production designer, the one who creates the visual conception of the film, working with the art director, who manages the art department which makes production sets. 3. Costume designer creates the clothing for the characters in the film working closely with the actors, as well as other departments. Makeup and hair designer works closely with the costume designer in order to create a certain look for a character. Casting director finds actors to fill the parts in the script. This normally requires that actors partake in an audition, either live in front of the casting director or in front of one or more cameras. Choreographer creates and coordinates the movement and dance, typically for musicals. Some films also credit a fight choreographer. Director of photography, DOP, the head of the photography of the entire film, supervises all cinematographers and camera operators. Production sound mixer, the head of the sound department during the production stage of filmmaking. They record and mix the audio on set, dialogue, presence, and sound effects in monaural and ambience in stereo. 5. They work with the boom operator, director, DA, DP, and first AD. Sound designer creates the oral conception of the film. 3. Working with the supervising sound editor. On Bollywood-style Indian productions, the sound designer plays the role of a director of audiography. 6. Composer creates new music for the film, usually not until post-production. Production. See also cinematography, audiography, and principal photography. Steven Spielberg, standing with Chandran Ratnam in Sri Lanka during the production of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, released 1984. Mahmood Zulfikar, 1968. Mahmood Zulfikar during the production of The Splendor of Love, released 1968. A film production in Estad 2022. In production, the film is created and shot. In this phase, it is key to keep planning ahead of the daily shoot. The primary aim is to stick to the budget and schedule, which requires constant vigilance. More crew will be recruited at this stage, such as the property master, script supervisor, assistant directors, stills photographer, picture editor, and sound editors. These are the most common roles in filmmaking. The production office will be free to create any unique blend of roles to suit the various responsibilities needed during the production of a film. Communication is key between the location, set, office, production company, distributors, and all other parties involved. A typical day shooting begins with the crew arriving on the set/location by their call time. Actors usually have their own separate call times. Since set construction, dressing, and lighting can take many hours or even days, they are often set up in advance. The grip, electric, and production design crews are typically a step ahead of the camera and sound departments. For efficiency's sake, while a scene is being filmed, they are already preparing the next one. While the crew prepares their equipment, the actors do their costumes and attend the hair and makeup departments. The actors rehearse the script and blocking with the director, and the camera and sound crews rehearse with them and make final tweaks. Finally, the action is shot in as many takes as the director wishes. Most American productions follow a specific procedure. The assistant director, AD, calls "picture is up" to inform everyone that a take is about to be recorded, and then quiet everyone. Once everyone is ready to shoot, the AD calls roll sound if the take involves sound, and the production sound mixer will start their equipment, record a verbal slate of the take's information, and announce sound speed, or just speed, when they are ready. The AD follows with roll camera, answered by speed, by the camera operator once the camera is recording. The clapper loader, who is already in front of the camera with the clapperboard, calls marker and slaps it shut. If the take involves extras or background action, the AD will cue them, action background, and last is the director, telling the actors, action. The AD may echo action louder on large suts. A take is over when the director calls cut, and the camera and sound stop recording. The script supervisor will note any continuity issues, and the sound and camera teams log technical notes for the take on their respective report sheets. If the director decides additional takes are required, the whole process repeats. Once satisfied, the crew moves on to the next camera angle or setup until the whole scene is covered. When shooting is finished for the scene, the assistant director declares a wrap or moving on, and the crew will strike or dismantle the set for that scene. At the end of the day, the director approves the next day's shooting schedule and a daily progress report is sent to the production office. This includes the report sheets from continuity, sound, and camera teams. Call sheets are distributed to the cast and crew to tell them when and where to turn up the next shooting day. Later on, the director, producer, other department heads, and, sometimes, The cast, they gather to watch that day or yesterday's footage, called dailies, and review their work. With workdays often lasting 14 or 18 hours in remote locations, film production tends to create a team spirit. When the entire film is in the can, or in the completion of the production phase, it is customary for the production office to arrange a wrap party to thank all the cast and crew for their efforts. For the production phase on live-action films, synchronizing work schedules of key cast and crew members is very important. 7. For many scenes, several cast members and many crew members must be physically present at the same place at the same time, and bankable stars may need to rush from one project to another. Animated films have different workflow at the production phase, in that voice actors can record their takes in the recording studio at different times, and may not see one another until the film's premiere. 8. Animated films also have different crew, since most physical live-action tasks are either unnecessary or are simulated by various types of animators. Post-production. Main article, post-production. This stage is usually thought of as starting when principal photography ends, but they may overlap. The bulk of post-production consists of the film editor, reviewing the footage with the director and assembling the film out of selected takes. The production sound, dialogue, is also edited. Music tracks and songs are composed and recorded if a film is intended to have a score. Sound effects are designed and recorded. Any computer-generated visual effects are digitally added by an artist. Finally, all sound elements are mixed down into stems, which are synchronized to the images on the screen, and the film is fully completed, locked.